everyone, and welcome to a trip report and Q&A breaking down our recent trip to Canada and our first Disney cruise to Alaska. If you're new around here, hi, my name is Brogan, and with my husband Benji we make travel, home and lifestyle vlogs, and would love it if you subscribed and checked out our full series. I'll have the playlist linked below, which features everywhere we went and everything we did. If you watched the vlogs, thank you so much for your support and I hope you enjoyed them. It really was a magic trip filled with so many bucket list experiences that we had been planning and dreaming of for such a long time. There were so many highlights, but there were also things that I learned and things I wanted to sort of go into a bit deeper with you and answer some of your frequently asked questions. I have notes on my iPad. We're going to go through everything, so grab a cup of tea. I'm going to break down the travel and flights, Banff, the Rocky Mountaineer, Vancouver, and then Disney cruise. This video is also very kindly sponsored by Airalo, who you may have heard me talk about over on Instagram a few times. Loads of you love them. Here's just some of your comments from how much you love and use Airalo. But if you don't know already, they are an app that provide eSIMs for over 200 countries and regions. They allow you to keep your same UK number, but switch so you can still stay connected. You don't have to worry about any roaming fees, any international charges, any physical SIM cards. You don't have to wait in line for them. You don't have the waste of the physical card either. It's all 100% digital.
We're halfway up a mountain in the middle of the national park and my Airalo eSIM has full signal.
That's so good.
We're just looking at what to do this afternoon, so we're planning it on our walk back, and I was able to look at maps and look at the restaurant we want to do, and perfect.
You download it, you choose a data plan and package that best suits you, and then you activate it on arrival. You need a steady Wi-Fi connection, and then you just follow through the steps. It will tell you exactly what you need to do. I personally recommend making sure you label it so you know exactly which one you're switching to. So I'll just write Dubai, or in this case Canada. It's super quick and easy to install and can be done on the go. You can even top up your data if you find that you're getting low. I really recommend checking out their global and their regional eSIMs so you can travel to multiple countries with just one eSIM. I personally have used them in Canada, of course, but also in the Maldives, in the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, South Africa, Dubai. There's been so many countries that we have relied on our eSIM. You can use my code BROGAN3 to get $3 off your first eSIM. I'll pop the link below, or you can scan this QR code, which will take you straight there if you want to download it while you are listening to me chat. But I just want to say a big thank you to Airalo. This trip actually started with us booking the Alaska Disney cruise, and then we worked backwards because I really wanted to do Banff and see Lake Louise and Moraine Lake, and we also really wanted to do the Rocky Mountaineer train. So we decided to start the trip a few weeks earlier and then end on the cruise, which made the most sense to us because cruising is really relaxing and sort of like we wound down. We started off with loads of adrenaline and energy, which was perfect for the like hikes and outdoor and nature, and then ending on the cruise. So I really enjoyed doing it that way, but I know a lot of people reverse it and start in Vancouver and come across. It doesn't really matter, but for us, that worked really nicely. Time of year, we did the very end of August to the beginning of September, mostly because we have no kids, so we're not restricted to school holidays, and typically these sort of times are quieter and cheaper, so that made a big difference for us. The weather was really nice. It was like perfect in Banff and on the train, and even Vancouver was still warm. I had dresses on in the evenings, but Alaska was really cold. If you go at the beginning of the season for Alaska, you might have sunnier days. We did 17 days total, which actually in hindsight was probably quite fast to do everything we wanted to do, but it was amazing. Let's start with the travel and flights. We originally booked with WestJet. We wanted a direct flight because changing obviously means more of a risk of losing luggage, and personally once I'm on a plane I just would rather sit down, relax and take me straight there. So we always book direct if we can to most places. WestJet were quite a lot cheaper at the time of booking, and I booked premium economy, so it was still cheaper for us to do premium economy WestJet than it was to do Air Canada. We get to Heathrow, they cancel the flight. That's the first time that's happened to me. I've only ever had delays. I've never had a cancelled flight, so I didn't know how to actually handle that. Looking back, I know and understand and appreciate that flights get cancelled for so many reasons, and that wasn't why I was disappointed. It was more the lack of customer service and support. I got an email telling me that our flight had been booked for 2 days later on the Monday. We were only in Banff for 3 days, so as I'm sure you can imagine, that wasn't going to work. I had tours and a hotel booked, and I couldn't just wait 2 days. That just wasn't a possibility. Otherwise we would have lost out on most of our time in Banff. So when I got to the desk and asked for help and support to book us on another flight, even if it meant having a connection, or if they'd book us on, you know, equivalent flight with another airline, they just refused. They basically gave me an 0800 number, and when I tried to call it and speak to somebody, I could not get through to anybody. I got cut off a few times, and I was just so exhausted and I was so desperate to get us there that I ended up buying us an Air Canada flight on the day on my credit card. We do actually have a saving pot dedicated to travel in our business account, so I was in a position that I knew I could put the flights on the credit card. We actually ended up booking premium economy with Air Canada, not because we necessarily felt we needed it, it's just because they were the only seats we could get together. And then when we were sat in the airport, there was an incredible upgrade offer. In terms of the upgrade, that took us from premium economy to business on the 7-hour flight to Montreal. That's where we did a layover, and it was £400 per person, which I thought was a really good price, but we had incredible service on board. In fact, the whole thing was so smooth. I couldn't fault Air Canada, and a lot of Canadians told me that they're not their most reliable airline. I really loved that I could track my luggage. I think that is a perk for business, but they kept telling me where it was. I liked all the team on board were lovely. The flight itself was great. The food was nice. Luggage didn't get lost, and layover was fine. So actually it ended up working out, and Air Canada will definitely be my preferred airline. I'm very loyal to certain airlines, so if I have a good experience once, I'll book them with them again, and we absolutely want to come back to Canada, so I will be booking with Air Canada. I have obviously put in claims with WestJet. They have told me that I am not eligible for any compensation. As I'm sure you can imagine, that just stings even more. So that was the whole flight experience. We flew home with British Airways. We were in economy. We actually snagged the like little 2 seats. If you know, you know. Economy on that flight was a 333, but they had a 232 layout configuration at the very back. So there was 3 or 4 2-seaters. We absolutely love British Airways. They're one of our preferred airlines, and I would have loved to have gone direct with them to Calgary, but they don't fly there, so it's flying to Vancouver, so flew home with them direct, and it all went very smoothly, so can't fault them. It was really great. Let's move on to Banff. Banff was one of the best places that we have ever been to. It absolutely blew us away. It has certainly jumped into our top 3 of all-time favourite places on earth. It is a new happy place for Benji and I. We would happily go to Canada and just stay in Banff, although in the future we would probably do things differently, but let me just talk about what we did do. We only had 3 days there, which in hindsight I thought would be plenty of time, but actually could easily do a week. It ticked so many boxes for us. Lots of leisurely, easy walks and hikes, really lovely shops, lots of different activities. The weather just so happened to be nice, which always helps, but I think it'd be incredible in the snow and winter because we're big skiers. We stayed at the Moose Hotel and Suites, which was amazing. Couldn't fault them either. Everything about that was great. I loved the room. We loved the hot tub on the roof. We didn't eat in their restaurant, but they have one, and it just felt very cozy and welcoming. We had the free bus passes that we could use locally. They lent us bear spray. They were very friendly, just super accommodating, and I loved the walking distance to town as well. We were so close to everything, which was very helpful. If we had more time, we would have gone horse riding or rafting, and these hot springs was also another option, but it was closed when we were there. But that's right by the Banff gondola if you're interested. I think it's a man-made hot springs, but it looks really nice. So there's loads of things we would do in the future, but I would love to stay longer. I'd love to do a week next time, and I think we potentially might build up the courage and confidence to do more of a road trip. So start in Banff and hire a car and go over to Jasper. I know Jasper has experienced wildfires and has been rebuilding, but we would love to go and see the national park and also the drive around. There's lots of like other lakes, like is it Peyto Lake I really want to see, and you get the chance to see more nature. So I think we would road trip to Jasper and maybe then on to Whistler. My dream is to go skiing in Whistler. It's so expensive when we have France and Italy and Switzerland right on our doorstep here in Europe, but I would love to ski over there at some point. But it was incredible. I can't wait to go back one day. It just fills me with so much excitement and joy. In my notes I put no faults. No notes. We loved it. If you have any questions about Banff that I haven't covered, then do let me know. If you watched the vlogs, you'll know that we didn't hire a car for this trip, although, like I said, we probably would in the future. So to get us across where we wanted to go to Vancouver, we knew we had to take a train. So we actually worked in partnership with the Rocky Mountaineer. They kindly provided the trip in return for us sharing our experience. They have lots of different routes across Canada and the US. It was 2 days on the train, 1 night in a hotel in Kamloops, and it was about 10 hours each day on the train itself. It was honestly incredible. I loved that so many little details made it really smooth. Things like picking us up from our hotel and dropping us off in Vancouver at the other end, and handling all our luggage and sorting out the hotel and the room key cards. All of those little things just made the day and experience so nice. Like the coach that picked us up was right outside our carriage of the train, because the train was massive. You never had to worry or walk far or navigate any extra logistics. It was all sorted. And the actual trip itself, like enjoying all the scenery, the hosts were so knowledgeable, entertaining, friendly, funny. Obviously the food was superior. We did not have a bad meal. We were so full up with snacks and drinks. The whole experience was truly a bucket list one, like really, really, really amazing. And we had quite a few questions that I didn't cover in the vlogs themselves, so let's talk about those now. Can you bring children on board? The answer is yes, if they are old enough to sit in a seat. And bear in mind, it is a long day on the train, the 10 hours and the 10 hours. There were a few people that were concerned about the noise levels. In our particular circumstance, we just so happened to have a group of 20 Australians that were sat behind us, and they were on a tour, like an extended one, with their own tour guide. So as a group, they all knew each other and were maybe just a little louder than if there were lots of couples or smaller families. So you might have a really quiet cabin. It just so happened that our carriage was maybe slightly elevated in terms of the noise level. We did have a table to ourselves, which you normally would share, but just because of the amount of people and the way it worked out, because they were a group, they wanted to sit together, we just so happened to get allocated a table for ourselves. And because they knew we were filming, it made it really difficult for us to be able to talk, film and document and share things if we had a guest sat next to us. We do our absolute best to respect people's privacy and didn't film anyone's faces, apart from the staff members that were happy to be in the vlog. That's why we had a table to ourselves, but maybe keep that in mind. But in terms of food as well, they will cater for any dietary requirements, and they are also accessible. We did show the lift, but if you're a wheelchair user, then yes, they will help you and support you. It was a luxury experience that does come with a price tag, because it really is special. It would be amazing for a honeymoon or a special birthday or celebration, and I would love to do it again. I really would. I'd love to do a different route, but it was fantastic. Let's talk about Vancouver next. We were here for 3 days, and we always love a city by the sea. This was also the port for our Disney cruise. Overall, I really enjoyed our time there. We chose to stay at the Hyatt Regency, which was a really good hotel. Couldn't really fault it, to be honest. It had everything we needed. It was a good location. A lot of people typically will stay on the waterfront at Canada Place if you're doing a Disney cruise. I think a lot of people love to see the ship coming in, which is fair enough, but it's so much more expensive to stay there. So that's why I chose to base us slightly out. So when I was looking on a map where the port was, I just took us a few rows down basically, and Hyatt is a brand that I've used and trusted for a few trips before, so that's why I went with them. We used the hop on off bus, which we found was okay. It was actually very busy a lot of the time, so I think they need to run more buses. We use a different brand in different cities that we go to, so this was a different company, but it did get us around, helped so we didn't have to constantly get Ubers, but you could walk a lot of places in all honesty in downtown. We enjoyed Gastown, Stanley Park and Grenville Island. That was really fun. The highlight for sure was the Capilano suspension bridge. We did that at night. It was all lit up with fairy lights and it was great. If you want to go and see that, watch to the end of the Vancouver vlog. We got 25% discount for going after 5 p.m. and it was a much quieter experience than some of the pictures I'd seen. But that was really nice. It wasn't just the suspension bridge. They had this treetop walk, beautiful, beautiful big thick trees that were so nice to admire and roam. So yes, I really enjoyed that. In all honesty, I feel like our time in Vancouver wasn't what we kind of originally planned. planned because it was a bit of a reset place for us. We took some time off of the vlog just so that we could get our energy back up for the cruise. We had to get some laundry done. We had to visit a doctor for Benji because he had a sore come up on his lip. So Vancouver, we didn't maximise to our full potential. We didn't do Vancouver Island, so there's so much more. We had a full list of restaurants we didn't get a chance to see and do. I think we would have done the aquarium if we had a bit more time in Stanley Park. We did like the flyover experience though, that was cool. Basically it's like soaring. I wouldn't say that I have Vancouver as a place I would rush back to necessarily. I feel like I did it, I enjoyed it for what it was, for what I saw, what I did, but maybe you would enjoy it a bit more if you did go out on a boat and did the islands and things like that, because there is so much that you can do and see. Final section to talk about is the Disney cruise. Now, to premise, this was our first Disney cruise. We had previously done 6 other cruises, one of which we spent 60 days on board for our wedding and our honeymoon. We have also spent a couple of days and nights on board 2 other cruise lines. So we've previously seen Princess Cruises, Virgin Voyages, and we've sailed with P&O Cruises. We know what we like and don't like when it comes to cruising. And previously cruising has been for cruising, and then our love for Disney has been from the Disney parks and traveling to Disneyland Paris, Walt Disney World. We've also done Disneyland in California and Hong Kong. Obviously combining our loves, we knew going into it that we would probably overall enjoy it, and we had very high expectations because we'd loved cruising so much and we loved Disney so much, and mostly because it cost a lot of money. We spent just over £8,000 for 2 adults. So as I'm sure you can imagine, that does change my feelings around things when I have high expectations and I've paid a lot. I don't think maybe my expectations were met in some areas, but there were lots of things I did love about Disney Cruise Line and lots of things that I felt could be improved. But I also acknowledge that this is a ship that's 26 years old. It's small, and this was a cold climate vacation. So this changes things a lot. When you sail in the Caribbean or you're going to Castaway Cay, you're going to be outside on the decks in the sunshine. Parties outside are going to feel and look different. But we have previously done Norway with another cruise line, but it was a much bigger ship. So what happens when you're on a cold cruise is that most people end up indoors, and when you're on a smaller ship, it just changes dynamics, which I didn't factor. Plus, with it being our first Disney cruise, I'm not sure it was the best one to do first because we didn't have any Castaway Club status, which meant we were the last to be able to book our shore experiences and all that kind of stuff. It was the second to last sailing of the season. It was also one of the cheapest weeks to go, and as a reminder, we've got no kids, so you know, you might feel very differently if you have children. I'm going to break it down into the ship, the activities, the room, the food, and the ports, so Alaska in general. And obviously if you do want to see our full trip, you can watch the vlogs. The ship itself, we really liked the theming. We thought it was very subtle and in general was very pretty. However, we didn't love the layout. Although being a smaller ship meant it was much easier for us to navigate places and walk everywhere, we often found ourselves at dead ends and going up and down stairs, and I just think the newer ships probably have better layouts, but as an older ship it was frustrating for us at times, just like working out where we were going. We used the app. As a new customer to Disney Cruise Line, I found this really overwhelming. There was so much in it, which you could say obviously that's amazing, there's so much choice, but in terms of using the app, I found it just a bit clunky because it was just so much going on and I didn't know the names of all the different activities. So there was a lot of information for me to be reading and navigating. I much prefer a physical printed book, but I appreciate that is wasted paper. I did like that you could favourite things, and when I was on the go and running around, I could just check where I needed to be quite easily. So pros and cons to the app itself. I loved the shop and I loved shopping for merch, and the team in there was so lovely. There was a particular cast member called Elle. I just loved seeing her and pin trading with her and buying merch, but I didn't realise the kind of die-hard fans that are desperate for specific merch items. And luckily I was in the right place, right time, and I just so happened to be queuing, but it was about an hour to get some of the exclusive Disney merch that was on board. So that was something I didn't quite factor, and it was like that for some of the shows and experiences as well. If you wanted to get a good seat for the Disney Frozen show, you'd have to be there at least 30 to 40 minutes. Some people were there an hour before. Although there were adult only areas and entertainment, which we did enjoy, we loved the hot tub. It was really hot and we used that almost every day, but we felt that the adults only areas were always busy in terms of they were hosting quizzes, wine tastings, or seminars. There was never really a quiet corner that we could just sit and read our books. We felt quite like tapped out by noise everywhere we went. Obviously we had our cabin, but we did miss having a bigger ship with more choices to sort of lounge around and enjoy reading. And then the biggest thing generally about the ship is just the expense. So like I said, our actual cruise was about £5,000, but we spent an additional £3,000 on top on board because of the shore experiences and the Wi-Fi and the spa, and those things were really expensive. And obviously you don't have to do those things, but I think Alaska, you do need shore experiences because the ports are small and there's not loads going on. Those things all added up. I mean, the Wi-Fi alone was $440 for 2 devices, which is outrageous, although it was very good. I think they use Starlink now. I couldn't upload any reels, so if you are a content creator, maybe keep these things in mind. Everything just felt really expensive, which I did know going into it, but on other cruise lines, we've previously paid for our shore experiences up front at home, so budgeting felt a little more accessible, whereas I didn't know what the final figures were for our shore experiences because when you book them in advance, you don't know how much the total cost for everything is. I hadn't quite tallied everything, I think, and so it all did add up very quickly. Let's talk about activities. Loved pin trading. I've recently got into pin trading in the parks. I'm a very new pin trader. I've got a very small collection, but I loved it on board. I made friends with other pin traders and they refreshed the boards. In general, it was really fun to hunt them out and see what I could find each day. We did a little craft, which was nice. We also tried bingo. We did stop in, didn't film them, and left fairly quickly for trivia and quizzes. And we found that the same people were doing the quizzes and winning every single one, which kind of sucked the fun out of it. So we chose to just let them be. I didn't love that about it, and there would just seem to be so many quizzes all the time. We did the spa, like I said, but overall just thought it was too expensive for what we got in return. And the package we did, the couples thing, which was lovely, it didn't include going in the rainforest room and seeing the rest of the spa, which I thought was a bit of a shame for the price we paid. On this particular cruise, for all Alaskan sailings, there is no firework night and there's no pirate night. So I think, having looked at some of my friends' videos when they're all dressed up in their pirate outfits and they're out on the top decks, I think we would enjoy that a lot more. However, speaking of shows, we really loved the theatre. We saw Frozen and Disney Dreams and the Golden Mickeys. I loved Frozen and Disney Dreams the best. They were amazing. We also really enjoyed the comedian slash juggler on the last night. We did like an adults only evening with him. He was hilarious. Definitely one of the best entertainment that we saw on board. And we also saw the Northern Lights, which I know Disney cannot control, but that was magic to see the Northern Lights. You could only really see them with your phone, but we did go out at like 1 AM and you could start to see like shapes, which was so cool. So I can finally tick that off my bucket list as well. I saw Northern Lights. I don't know if this is just Alaska or maybe just Disney Cruise Line across the board, but there was no real formal night. People generally dress quite casual, and I even noticed myself, I was in joggers, hoodies, leggings for the majority of the time. I had some like nicer dresses to wear in the evenings and almost felt a bit overdressed. So if you want a cruise where it is super casual, you don't have to pack, heels and bags and get all glam, then you would love it. But for me, I missed that element of like date night and seeing Benji in a shirt and some chinos and putting on a dress that I've saved for my cruise. I just missed that side of things personally, so that's something I would be wanting in the future. And finally, we have to talk about characters, because one of the biggest reasons I chose Disney Cruise Line over other cruise lines is because I really wanted to tick off my bucket list Disney dream of meeting Mickey and Minnie in their Alaskan outfits. If you watched our vlog, you'll know that we couldn't do Glacier Day, so our character meets were moved originally a deck lower under shelter because it was raining, and then they were put inside. I know that Disney can't control the weather, but this mini meet, you don't even need the sound on, you can see it was one of the worst character meets I have personally ever had, and I have done hundreds across all the parks. I felt like character meets generally across the board were pretty good. There were lots of characters everywhere, and I loved getting my mini ears signed by a lot of them, but I felt like at times it felt like there were so many characters everywhere. But my experience of the Alaskan day, Glacier Day, kind of let me down, I think is the only way to describe it. I was just disappointed. Okay, let's talk about the cabin. We had a Navigator's Verandah, which is only on the Wonder and the Magic, I believe, which basically meant that the balcony was more enclosed and had like a circular hole, which was massive. It wasn't glass, you could poke your head fully through, and I loved it because it protected us from the wind. It was just really nice, really cozy. We read our books out there, whale watching. I really loved it, and I'd really recommend it if you are booking an Alaska Alaska Disney cruise. We really liked the room in general. The bed was comfy. They gave me memory foam pillows, which was so nice. I loved our host. I loved the towel art he did on the bed. The sofa was really uncomfortable, like it was really hard. But I loved all the storage space, the desk, the mirrors. We didn't love the split bathrooms. I know a lot of you love them. Basically having two separate bathroom areas. And if you have family or you're traveling with friends, I think that 99% of you said that you love the bathrooms. But as a couple, it was very rare that we needed two separate bathrooms at any time. And we also found ourselves like leaning around the wall, passing our toothpaste to each other. So it just kind of felt a bit inconvenient for us. We just didn't love that. And also the shower curtain. I much prefer these sort of newer ships that have showers with the doors. So they were just like small details that, you know, each to their own. We liked most of the room in general, but that was that. I also loved decorating the door. That was fun. I'd go out a bit more to do more things. Food. Okay, few notes on the food. We loved the soft drinks were included. We loved that ice cream and hot chocolate was included. That hot chocolate was so good. I think I had 1 or 2 a day. It was amazing. When it came to our meals, it's very different on Disney Cruise in comparison to what we know, because they have this dining rotation thing. And there were a few things I didn't realize about that. Number one, you might end up doing a rotation same 2 nights in a row. So I think we did Tiana's 2 nights in a row. What I didn't realize is I thought that the 3 themed restaurants would feel like 3 very different restaurants. They do in terms of the overall theming when you walk in, but the actual food and the menus are basically the same. They're all coming out from the same kitchens. And we did find that food generally was quite basic. You get like a meat, a veg, and a carb. And because they're mass catering at the same time for a lot of people, we didn't feel like the food was wowy. There was nothing stand out that I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's amazing, I want to order that again. There were lovely meals we had. There were also some really terrible meals. There was a couple of meals we sat down, didn't like the menu, we left. There was one meal where Benji's pasta was rock hard. However, I do want to premise that our meal at Paolo, we had dinner there. A lot of you told me to have brunch, but we ended up doing dinner. It was 10 out of 10, like could not fault it. Our server, the quality of the food, it was all amazing. That's right at the end of the last vlog if you want to see that, but no regrets for having dinner there, and I would absolutely have dinner at Paolo again in the future. We also did try the buffet and some of the like quick servicey things, which I thought were good for families, but nothing really stood out to us. I think a lot of the buffet to me felt quite simple. This is so niche, but I didn't love being so close to other tables. We were sat next to another family, the same family every night, because we were on this rotation obviously, and we felt we couldn't have a private conversation even though we had a private table, which I'm so glad we did that. We requested it, and we also double checked when we got on board, because I don't want to share a table with other people personally, because we were so close to another table, literally like, you know, like that. They could hear everything we were saying, so I didn't realize I was craving that privacy until we ate at Paolo and no one could hear us and no one was next to us. And I also didn't love having a set time for dinner. We had the 8:15, which was definitely better for us with no kids, but I eat fairly intuitively. I eat when I'm hungry, and there were times where I was hungry an hour before dinner time or maybe an hour after, and I felt forced to go to dinner at that certain time, and there was no other choice. For me, I much prefer what we've known as freedom dining on P&O cruises, where we can just go for a meal whenever we want. We also didn't realise at Animator's Palette, Sorcerer Mickey came out at the end of the first night. Our first meal was there and no one told us, we didn't know. And my last point in the food section was I didn't like that the specialty coffees and cocktails didn't have any prices on the menu, so you really didn't know unless you obviously asked. It was just something I really noted, that I like to be able to read a list and see the price of the different cocktails and decide which one I want to have. And lastly, let's talk about Alaska in general. So I can't talk about Glacier Day. If you watch the vlog, it didn't happen. We had a medical evacuation emergency where a helicopter came to get the person that needed assistance, and we also had terrible weather, so we never saw the glacier, so that didn't happen. We also didn't have the glacier booked for any of our shore experiences, so we just totally missed out on seeing glaciers in general for this trip. So if that was a priority for you, maybe have it as a shore excursion. So 3 stops on land: Skagway, Juneau, and Ketchikan. Skagway, we did the train because truthfully it was the only thing we could really get with what was left in terms of choice when it was our turn to book our shore experiences, and we'd already done the Rocky Mountaineer train, so it did feel a little repetitive to be doing another train, but it was a nice experience. The only downfall is that that particular day in port at Skagway, there were 3 other ships in, so there were 4 ships total, which meant that the town itself was overcrowded and horrible to try and navigate around the shops. It was really overwhelming, and we ended up back on board by lunchtime, and the rest of the day was spent on board. Next we did Juneau, and we did a whale watching experience. We enjoyed this. We saw a few whale fins. They didn't breach, so we didn't have any coming out the water. We enjoyed going to the Orca Point for lunch and doing s'mores, and it was like a really lovely day, but for the price, we paid $300 per person, and I just don't think it was worth that when you get the opportunity to see whales quite frequently on the actual cruise itself. But I will say we spent the same price on our bear experience in Ketchikan. So we went to see some bears up close. We went on a wooden walkway thing, again about $300 per person, but for us, seeing the bears that close was really worth it, and we didn't feel rushed, and that was a really great experience. And Ketchikan in general was our favourite stop. It was a really sweet town. We were the only ship in port that day, which made a big difference. We did the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show as well, which I actually booked direct with them. In terms of like ports, Ketchikan was definitely our favourite. Had a bit of everything. We loved the Christmas shop, bought some nice merch there. We had a meal, like some pizza in a bar. It was just a really good day out. The bears was an absolute highlight. Amazing seeing them so close, so that was a win. I feel like I've gone into quite a lot of depth here on the Disney cruise, but overall I'm not sure if it really was the perfect first cruise for us in terms of Disney Cruise Line. I think maybe we should have started in a warmer country or a European one on a different ship, and I know that if we were to choose to sail with them again on a much bigger ship, we would probably have a very different experience. I know a lot of my friends love Disney Cruise Line, and I would love to hear if you think there are other ships we should try or different routes in the future. I know you can put a placeholder down. It's $250 refundable deposit whilst you're on board. We chose not to do that. At the time in the headspace, I couldn't see or envision what we do. I think we want to try other cruise lines, and I think Benj and I are craving more adult stuff with more entertainment and better food choices. So there were things that we felt we didn't get being on this sort of smaller ship. Final FAQs: were the mosquitoes bad, especially in Banff? No, we had absolutely no mosquitoes anywhere we went. I think that was just down to time of year. I packed bug spray and bite cream. We didn't use either of them at all. I assume in the height of summer with different temperatures and weather it might be completely different, but we didn't have any bug bites or see or feel any or anything. How did you find your hiking trainers instead of hiking boots? So some of you know I packed Skechers. They're called D-Lights hiking trainers. I bought them in an outlet. Honestly, I was kind of a little bit short for time and choice when I was trying to find something a week before we left, but they were amazing. I loved my Skechers. I'll definitely be packing and using them for future trips that are similar. For those times where my normal trainers don't have enough grip or my walking boots just feel clunky and heavy to pack, the hiking trainers were perfect. So yeah, good shout on that, and thank you to all of you that recommended hiking trainers over hiking boots, because I really didn't do massive hikes. And lastly, some of you asked what we would do differently, and I feel like in terms of our first time in Canada, this really did tick a lot of boxes for us, and I think the logistics and how we planned it worked well for us. I'm really glad we didn't have to worry about a car. Everything was just exactly how we envisioned. But obviously next time, because we didn't know we'd fall in love with Banff, we would want to spend more time there, like I said, and we would want to road trip and have more time to drive. I think we'd actually spend time in Calgary. That's where we'd fly into, and maybe base ourselves there for a few days. Seems like a cool city, so I'd like to do a bit more of that. And just generally, I've just fallen in love with Canada so much. I loved so much about it, and there's so many more places I want to see and do. So watch this space. If there is anywhere else you would love to see us cover in Canada, then leave it below. Just finally, I hope this video has been somewhat helpful, but if you have any other questions or things you want to know or logistics or stuff I didn't get to cover in the vlogs, then please leave a comment. Do let me know where you're traveling to next, where you might need that Airalo eSIM, and big thank you to them for sponsoring this video. Again, here's the QR code if you did want to scan them and use them. Brogan3 for $3 off your first eSIM if you want to try them out, and let me know how you get on. I'll also leave the link below for you. And a big final thank you to all of you for watching and supporting our vlogs. It means so much to us, and we can't wait for our next adventures. We're heading back to Disneyland Paris if you are Disney fans. We've got a few things up our sleeve. We're always sort of working on next exciting things, and I feel so lucky to have been able to tick off so many things on my bucket list this trip, and I got so emotional at so many moments. I think I cried more on this trip than I have on any other trips. I dreamt about it for so long, so it really did feel so special that we got the chance to do it all in such an amazing way. So thank you again. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you again in my next ones. Bye.